Okay, test, test, test. Let's see if we have audio. Okay. We'll take the little one out today. So, let's catch up. It's been a little bit more than a year since I last vlogged anything on. It's been a little bit more than a year since I last really did anything on YouTube with my blog. And the big reason for that was a little over a year ago, back in March the 5th, 6th, whatever, it was a Sunday. I was in a pretty bad motorcycle accident. Lady basically made an illegal left, T-boned me, broke my pelvis in 5 places, shattered my ankle and wrist. The broken pelvis essentially turned what used to be a protective ring of calcium into a bag of razor blades. So that nicked up a bunch of arteries. When I went up over the tank, I slid forward faster than I slid upwards, and it basically just split my pelvis like a block of wood. And yeah, so the ambulance came, and I almost bled out on the way to the hospital, and I got put under, and they cauterized a bunch of veins and sutured up my lacerated downstairs. It was not good. So I spent a couple weeks in the ICU. I spent a month and a half maybe at a nursing home doing PT so I could eventually come home in a wheelchair and spend more time healing. And it was rough, man. I had PTSD, anger issues, you name it. It hurt. It really hurt. Anyhow, you know, young me had a problem with opioids in the past, so it was in week, like maybe 2. Maybe, I don't know, I was probably in the hospital for about 10 days, and finally I was talking to the nurse who was coming to give me my daily meds, and I was like, well, you know, let's go through everything in this cup and give it a name. And they're happy to do that. It's their job. And when she got to the oxys, I was like, no more oxys. I'll take the gabapentin, you know. I'll take the baclofen for the muscle spasms after surgery. No more oxys. It's just bad news. And she looked at me with a mix of terror and disbelief. But we stopped the oxys. For the whole rest of my recovery, I pretty much just took Tylenol. And it wasn't pretty, it wasn't perfect, but months and months and months later, my wife was seeing a chiropractor because her neck was bothering her, like, you know, whatever, pinched nerve. So they got to talking, catching up, how you been, what's up, you know, all the usual stuff. And he told him about the accident. He was quiet for a little bit. He's like, so, I mean, at this point, is he trying to wean himself off the pain meds? She kind of laughed. She was like, at no point did he really take pain meds. He did it all on Tylenol. He was like, really? Nothing? You know, by that point, you know, nothing. He pauses for a moment. And he's like, ex-military? Professional, you know, sports? Like, how? Who does that? It was a silver lining, I guess. I don't know. But it knocked me for a loop. I mean, honestly, it wasn't trivial. It hurt. It jacked me up. And to this day, I'm still a little, injured still. But I was back up on my feet and walking around, albeit, much slower by that July. I mean, hell, at one point in July, I was looking at Softails because at the time of the accident, I was riding my Triumph, which sadly did not survive the accident, unlike me. And anyway, by the time July came, I felt like, I can tolerate the weight. Because compared to a Road Glide, like with, the Tour Pack and the whole 9 yards, a Softail or, my Triumph, it was half the weight. It's just a lot easier on me, anyhow. Yeah, it's fine. But this bike is not something I got directly because of the accident. I sat on, the money I got, because my bike got totaled. It was still pretty new. It was paid off, but like still. And I went to a dealership at one point just to check out the used bikes they had, and they had this guy. It's a 2018. The guy who had it before me, his aesthetic was similar enough to mine that, like, I didn't mind what he did. And they were asking a reasonable amount for it, so I bought it. But anyway, yeah, it was a crazy experience. Earlier this month, I went to Bike Week in Daytona. I rode the Road Glide down. That was awesome from the perspective of, like, knowing that I can still do it. I still can do long trips, and, that was an accomplishment, and, so that part was really, really cool. But, it's March, the beginning of March, and so it rained a lot, and it was a very damp trip, but I did it, and I had fun, and it was cool. But now, the sun's coming out, everything's getting warmer, it's starting to be more truly of a springtime thing, so that's awesome. But yeah, so that's part of the reason I disappeared. I was literally just figuring myself out, because I felt bad after the accident. I mean, physically, and I got back on the bike pretty quick, but yeah, I guess also related to the accident. When the whole thing happened, I was coming home from riding out to the park. It was an unseasonably warm day for up here in March, so I took the bike out. Anyhow, I got the whole thing on film. So, there was a guy walking his dog who saw everything. He told the cops what he saw. The lady who hit me just outright lied. Completely different version of the story. I was in the ICU that first night. My wife was there. I mean, we were both pretty freaked out. I remember talking to her, and I was like, "Babe, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that I never turned the camera off on the way back from, where I was. When you come tomorrow, bring my, GoPro," because she told me the cops gave it back to her. It was all scratched up, like whatever, but SD card was intact. Anyhow, lo and behold, there was the footage. So the cop showed up at the hospital, and, it was like, obviously you were jacked up and bleeding to death, and I wasn't going to ask you a million questions then, but I do have to ask you about the accident. And so, I gave him the paperwork and the insurance and the, all the usual crap, and he was like, "Okay, so then tell me what happened." And I was like, "Well, I can tell you, or I can show you." And he kind of looked at me, and I was like, "Yeah, I had the GoPro on, I got it on film." And he's like, "Well, how are you going to get it to me?" And I was like, "I put it on a thumb drive. You can just, take it, look at it, copy it. I don't care." And he was like, "Well, how will I give it back to you?" And I'm like, "Well, you're, a neighborhood cop, right? You're in my neighborhood all the time." I was like, "Just drop it in my mailbox when you're done. I don't really care. It's just a thumb drive. And if it, makes this case any easier, clearer, more convenient, or whatever, then it's well worth the cost of some tiny ass thumb drive. I don't care, So eventually, when I got the police report, everything I said lined up with what he saw and what the guy walking his dog said. There's no question of who was responsible for the accident. And I mean, she stopped, she was insured, she wasn't drunk. I mean, it wasn't a stolen car. Like, it could have been so much worse, you know? It still made me super angry, but one thing at a time. Yeah, the other day here in Pennsylvania, we had a pretty remarkable event in the sense that, you know, there was a magnitude 4.6, 7 earthquake over near Jersey. Nothing really to report, but, you know, we don't get those here generally. And so, you know, for a second, I was talking to a buddy of mine at a work meeting, and all of a sudden everything starts shaking. And at first I thought, you know, that one of the neighbors was doing some excavation, or there was like some truck going way too fast in a place it had no business being or something. And then he said something about it, and I was like, you feel that too? And he was like, yeah, it's got to be an earthquake. Like, we had them in California. I kind of cracked up. His dog freaked out. My cat's freaked out. The house shook, but like not even enough to like knock a picture off the wall. You know what I mean? Like, there was clearly something happening, but nothing catastrophic happened anywhere around here that I'm aware of. You know, like, it just was a bunch of vibration and noise. Because you could hear it. Like, it sounded like a train passing by. But it was crazy. It was interesting. That was kind of remarkable. I don't know that I ever felt an earthquake in this area ever, and I've lived down here for a long time at this point. But yeah, I went on the what is it, UGS or whatever the hell it is, .gov, and you know, within a few minutes they had, like, you know, the sensor readings and all that stuff, and it confirmed, you know, kind of what I was thinking. So I wasn't totally full of it, and that's cool.